You ready to work? That's it. We'll give you a treat. On the menu today, the Durka? I don't know, it's like a cheese puff. Yeah, hold on, sit. I'll get you one. There it is. You give me a shake? Give me a shake? Shake. Good girl. Here you go. There. Now, even this is gonna have its limitations. Again, there's a pattern. This is a less expensive tool, and you're gonna notice right away that it is actually shorter. If you go buy a Snap-on, a Max set of ratcheting wrenches, they're gonna be a little bit longer. All right, so we got the long block on the stand and we're working on getting parts. Hey, Sam, that thing's kind of loud. Would you please? Anyway, like I said, we got the long block, new engine on the stand. So we got the valve cover swapped over. I got to clean up the timing cover, clean up the oil pans, got to get a few gaskets, stuff like that. I was thinking maybe we could just stick Sammy in here and power it that way. But anyway, all these tools you see here, this variety, they're all set out for a specific discussion purpose today. So let's get into the video. Seriously, could you chew any louder? Where's your manners? Chew with your mouth closed. No? All right. All right, guys, welcome back for another video. If you're new here, welcome. And if you're not new here, you might notice that this isn't our shop. We've put a few shorts out on the channel recently working on this motor swap for the Grand Caravan behind me for this customer. This is my father's shop, and he was so kind as to let us do this motor swap here because, as you know, we only have one stall at the shop. And rather than have to clog up the bay for a week because things happen, we have a long block here, we got lots of parts to clean, put it back together, it's gonna take a couple days to get this done. And being that we only have one stall ourselves, we couldn't really clog up the shop for a week and just tell all our other customers no. So I've been all over the place. I worked on this Saturday, I worked on it Sunday. We're trying to knock it out as quickly as we can for the customer. They know that I'm a one-man show and I can only be so many places at once. Doing these bigger jobs really kind of tests your tool arsenal. And recently on YouTube, there's been this huge debate between Icon, Snap-on, Harbor Freight, all the tool truck brands, and I just wanted to come out and talk about it as a person who's been in this industry for about a decade now at this point. I recently did a Harbor Freight video talking about the warranty process on this Icon pocket knife. You can go check that out on the channel. That was a couple weeks back. And you know, everyone's a keyboard warrior. There's lots of comments saying I don't know what I'm talking about, which clearly isn't true. And also people, you know, everyone's got an opinion. It's like a belly button. But we're gonna just dive into what kind of tools do you need? Why do you need these specialty tools? And are you really saving any money or wasting money by buying specific brands? Do you guys hear the crickets in here? All right, so there was a time when you could fix virtually anything you needed to fix on your car with this old school Craftsman ratchet and this old school Craftsman wrench. Now, inherently, these aren't bad tools. They do work. There's not very fine teeth in here, and this guy is relatively short and it's relatively fat. So space is really the issue that has pushed us to buying all these different kinds of specialty tools. As things get more complicated, they cram motors into smaller spaces. You have transverse motors making up the majority of passenger vehicles nowadays, and then you're adding things like turbos, big fancy plastic intakes, all sorts of extra stuff that you have to work around ultimately. So again, this isn't our shop. This is my old man's shop, which he so kindly let me use to do this engine swap on this van. Makes my life easier. I'm really grateful that he's able to and willing to let me do that. He is not a mechanic by trade. He's an architect. Now, he is very handy. His Land Cruisers, he's rebuilt the motors on. He's done lots of mechanical repairs on cars. But if you're not doing this on a professional level, he's got lots of tools, but a lot of the tools end up being stuff like this. And necessity is ultimately what pushes even us who do it every day to buy different tools, right? You're doing a job and you're like, crap, I need this, so you go buy it. Now, like I said, you know, something like this is not a bad tool. It's not very fine toothed, and you can tell the head on that thing is just massive. So other than something where you're wide out in the open, this ratchet is not very practical. Now let me grab the next thing. Now we're gonna get into brands and stuff in a minute, but look at this as a comparison. This is a Harbor Freight offering. It's an ultra low profile long reach ratchet. We got a 3/8 on this end, flex head, and a 1/4 inch on this end, which right now I got a 10 mil socket on. So this guy, you can just tell looking at this tool right here that you're gonna be able to fit in a lot of tighter spaces on a project like this, where you're taking out virtually everything out of the vehicle. I actually made a list, went back to our shop and picked up things that I knew I needed. So a lot of what is pushing people to buy different tools, more specialty type tools, is just one, the engineering on the cars nowadays, and I say nowadays as if it hasn't been for like the last 30 years. It just keeps getting worse and worse. But this is what makes you buy stuff like this, you know? And it's just stuff, quite frankly, that nowadays you're not gonna be able to get a lot of jobs done without having some of these tools. Now, if we look into upgrading some of those DIY tools, like a mid-grade necessity type, I don't know exactly what I'm trying to say. Something to make your life easier with the tool. We can look right at this set of flex head gear wrenches, right? So again, ratcheting wrench makes things a lot easier. Flex head. Now, even this is gonna have its limitations. Again, there's a pattern. This is a less expensive tool, and you're gonna notice right away that it is actually shorter. If you go buy a Snap-on, a Mac set of ratcheting wrenches, they're gonna be a little bit longer, which is gonna give you more leverage, reach up into tighter spaces, stuff like that. These gear wrenches are really quality tools. They're nice, they're not terrible. The problem that you have with a tool like this is, again, clearances. This head is relatively thick, relatively fat. On this side, it's relatively thick, relatively wide. So you get into a specialty tool again. Now this is an offering from Icon. These are 0 offset flex head ratcheting wrenches. You can see on there, it kind of mimics a socket with the way that this receiving end sticks out and onto your fastener. So this is gonna be super low profile, pulleys, belt, stuff like that. In this case, we use these to get a lot of the bell housing bolts out, especially down low where the cradle's in the way, stuff like that. Get a lot of leverage on this guy, ratcheting. Now again, this is Icon. This guy right here is my Mac set. So this, similar style wrench, you can see that there. This guy is going to be obviously non-flex head, non-ratcheting. This set was over $400, 400 some dollars for this set. This Icon set was $180. When I looked at this set through Mac, it was well over $600. It was into that $700 range. Same with Snap-on, whatever. Now, I've been using these just about every day for the last 3.5 years now is when I bought these. 180 bucks, and for the most part, you go into your Harbor Freight if you break one, and they'll give you a new one. I've heard horror stories. We went over that with the Icon pocket knife video. Go check that out if you want more on that. But this is a good tool. I've used and abused these. I mean, look at how long this thing is. You can get a lot of leverage on a tool like this, and that's a lot of torque going into this ratcheting mechanism up here. I haven't busted a single one. I'm not saying that I won't, but I'm saying in 3.5 years in use in a professional setting, these things have held up really well. So you get to a point where is the cost derivative worth the extra money? Now there are tools that absolutely you want a high grade tool. Couple examples of that from me. Snap-on offerings. We got a Snap-on pry bar here, and now this may seem like a really relatively simple tool because it is, but this gets used and abused. The high-end pry bars always have a striker cap on the end for the most part, right? If you go buy a $10 pry bar from Harbor Freight, it's not gonna come with this striker end, and this, you know, you wedge it up in somewhere, you're whacking it with a hammer. You want this to be durable. And I'm not saying that Snap-on's the only one that you can go out and get a quality pry bar with a striker end on it, but the offerings become much more common when you're dealing with higher end tool brands, tool truck brands. Not to mention, you get down into the mix of metal they use to make these, stuff like that, the materials are just better. There's plenty of offerings that are just as good, but a lot of it comes down to convenience. You're working at the shop, the truck comes every week, you pick up your tool, you're happy with it. And a lot of times you get deals. I got this guy in a 4-piece set on sale, and it was still expensive, but not really like the typical outrageous Snap-on prices. So it kind of depends. Again, it's a balancing act, you know? What's the tool that's gonna provide durability and what ultimately makes sense to you to spend your money on? It's just one of those things. It's gonna depend on the job. It's gonna depend on you as a person, what you can afford, but that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. Another item I don't like going cheap on would be pliers. This is a Snap-on needle nose. Now, I did buy the Icon needle nose, and it's very, very similar. You know, you can obviously tell that Icon's going after Snap-on with most of their offerings. Main differences I've seen is the grips on the Snap-on feel better. They're a little bit slimmer, they're not so chunky, and a lot of times on pliers, the grips on the cheaper ones will slide off of here, which gets really annoying. So that's one thing to consider. Although I will say I do like the Icon pliers that I have. They've held up really well, they perform well, and again, you get into specialty stuff. This is a Mac coolant hose pliers. If you can see in there and it'll focus, I don't know if it will. There's teeth that go this way to grip a hose clamp and teeth that go this way to grip a hose clamp. And again, a lot of the times, the only reason that this is really necessary over like a channel locks or something like that is you get into a really tight spot where maybe you can't quite fit a channel locks just right and it keeps slipping off and you're pinching your fingers. This tool kind of solves that problem. Now, there are hose clamp pliers that are on a cable and they work better, you know, get down in a tight spot. But generally speaking, this is going to be an example of a tool truck tool that I haven't really seen elsewhere. I haven't looked too hard because I found this one. This was $38 on sale. So not every time you step on a tool truck are they going to absolutely, completely obliterate your savings account. A lot of times, yes, there's a lot of tool truck tools that are good tools, but it doesn't really financially make sense to spend that kind of money when companies like GearWrench, Icon are coming out with tools that are, you know, maybe not quite as good, but a tenth of the price. Last one, back to specialty tools, and necessity being the driving factor of going out and getting something, is going to be my Milwaukee right angle impact. Now, I bought this specifically for one job that I was working on. I always wanted one, and I just didn't really need it at the time. I didn't see the need to go spend 250 bucks on this thing. I was doing seat bolts in a Yukon, helping my buddy Sam out, and this was the only tool that fit to get into the frozen seats and obliterate the rust that was on those bolts. So it's a very impressive tool. I believe it's rated at 220 foot-pounds. Don't quote me on that, something in the 200s. Really good tool. Is this something that you're going to need if you're doing brake jobs and oil changes in your driveway? Probably not. The point that I really just wanted to drive home in this video is that the way cars are engineered now, you're gonna have to buy specialty tools, and that has created kind of this like war on tool truck tools and cheaper tools trying to step up their game and get to that next tier. And there's just so many fanboys out there, you guys. I love my Snap-on tools. I love my Mac tools. Guess what? I still love a lot of the tools that I buy at Harbor Freight. It's just one of those things. You have to see what works and what doesn't work. And if I can buy something like those Icon wrenches that were a fifth of the cost of the comparable Snap-on and Mac versions, they've held up just fine. I absolutely love them. And their lifetime warranty. As we talked about in the knife video, there might be a few more hoops and things you have to jump through, but as a whole is a pretty seamless process. One other thing I forgot to mention, you guys, is you're going to end up creating tools at the end of the day, no matter what you're doing. If you're in this field for any length of time, you're going to create your own tools. Here is a special service tool that I created for the Audi TT drift car. If you haven't seen the Audi TT drift car, we took a 1.8 turbo Quattro all-wheel drive, 2000 Audi TT, we converted it to rear-wheel drive so that we could go rip around the drift track. I do have coilovers here in the shop to get that car much improved and hopefully make it to Drifttoberfest. But when we worked on the rear differential and did our rear-wheel drive conversion, we ended up making this tool just to get the drain plug out because there's a very small clearance. So don't shy away from garage sale tools either, because sometimes you need them to make something like this. All right guys, so that's what I wanted to talk about today. I just wanted to talk about, you know, balancing your tool budget and why in the world it's not like 30 years ago and you can just go out and buy a Craftsman starter set and get going on any engine swap or, you know, complicated repair that you have to do. We're just past those times, you guys. It hasn't been that way in a while, and this is the reason that I think a lot of these tool wars are going on, is because as new tools are coming out, all those lower tier brands are trying to catch up to the tool trucks because, quite frankly, people are getting sick of paying $700-800 for a set of wrenches. The tools are great, but sometimes the prices are just a little bit insane. Anything else coming to the channel soon, going on the channel as of recently. I've been really trying to figure out a way to get more electric scooter footage. You guys seem to really like that. I put this post up on Facebook and it seemed to blow up really fast. I love the thing. I need to figure out a way to get a head cam on there so that we can get some good footage, get some vlogs going with that thing. If you guys enjoyed the video, drop me a comment down below. Like and subscribe as always if you have not already. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.